Okay, so welcome everyone to this tech talk, which is on object-driven pages. It's a deep dive into no-code UI. So it's being presented by Siva Umapathy. I'm Laura Flack, and as always, this session is being recorded. The recorded session will be posted up on TraceLink University. And if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email TraceLink University at tracelink.com. I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask myself at the end. Well, I will ask Siva, and then if you have any questions, please feel free to also ask any questions that you may have. Before I hand over to Siva, I'm just going to introduce him and then go through our antitrust guidelines and class guidelines. So Siva owns development and delivery of no code and agentic capabilities for the Opus platform. He's developed no-code, low-code systems earlier that were used in manufacturing, the aviation, and also retail sectors. And for our antitrust guidelines, our classes, as always, are public, so we just ask you not to engage in any discussions around pricing, deal making, selling, promoting, or any other activities which could be seen as anti-competitive. And our class guidelines. So again, because our classes are public and we do have a limited time frame, I'm just going to, I'll need to take any more specific use cases offline. And then also, if there is anything that you want to follow up on, of course, we can just look into it further for you. Sorry, I'm just going to disable the waiting room, which I should have done already. But on that note, I am going to hand over to Siva. And Siva, thank you very much for presenting this topic.
Thanks, Laura. And it's a good time to talk to you all again. So we had a tech talk earlier where we explored what a solution looks like and how solution enables no-code development. In this session, we would actually take a closer look on how to create no-code driven user experiences in Opus. So when we talk about no-code user experience within Opus, that simply centers around three main concepts: a business object, network pages, and menu. So what we will do today is take each of these, take a closer look at what do they mean, how do you define, then explore how all of these work together to give you a no-code experience. Before we deep dive into these topics, let me just give a very rudimentary example or definition about these. A business object is as good as a table in any other systems. Table has columns, it has rows of data. A business object is like that. It's a table that allows our solution developers to define its structure, and we give a full no-code behavior just with the definition. Once you have your business object defined, you can define or design your network pages. Now, these are the user-facing user experience of seeing data, editing data. We call them network pages because TraceLink operates on network, and pages are pages out of your business object, and that's why we call them network pages. And then a menu brings this network page experience to end users and provides a navigation model. So let's look at the business objects. Now, before I go and define these definitions, what could be a business object? So if you're defining Mint, and in the Mint solution, you define shipment, purchase order, shipment receipt, like an forecast plan. These are very good business objects. Now, these are well-defined business objects. Now, there are also Poet app. In our Poet app, we actually provide very basic business object like work items, and lists that helps you to build what you want. But for simplicity's sake, let's just use Mint here and understand like purchase order, shipment, they're all business objects. Now, to these business objects, you can add something called a simple field. Simple field is like any other columns. And this provides behaviors like a due date, and you want to add description. The simple fields are defined by something called a rich field type. We're going to take a closer look, but you can see the rich field types are not just text boxes or number entries. They are much more sophisticated. We have as simple as a text area, number, date, but more advanced, such as file attachments and so on. Geo area, like we use geo area to mark locations. So those are rich fields. Now, you could use these simple field concepts to build a groups. If you want to have an address, you need more than a couple of fields and they come together. You want to have the product details. Again, they come together so you can define these groups. Now, the concept that builds on top of that is a collection. A collection, imagine you want a line item. In order, you have an order line item. You could have order line item number, quantity, shipment date, that's a group. But then you can have, like very similar to an array, you could have these as order line items, which we call a collection. Now, it's very important to think about it this way because unlike other systems where all of these are individual tables, our system allows you to define a business object semantically, not data-wise. And that's why you have a purchase order, and you can express your collection items there, collection of order line items there, and this constructs allows you to model that. Now, said that, what we will do is that we will take a closer look at where you will find your business object, how it looks like, and how you can really define it. So I'm going to make a small shift and log into our system here. Once you log in under your company, you could go and choose Opus Solution Environment. And within OSC, you can navigate to business object types. TraceLink already ships business objects, which are called standard business objects. For your company, you can actually start from the standard business object and design your own business object by adding fields, groups, and collections that you want. So let's take a look at a simple business object here. I'm going to look for, say, a task, because today we're going to actually use that to walk through and build a screen. So I'll look for a task business object. So let me collapse these. And you see our task business object type has these four concepts, which is fields, groups, field collections, and group collections. Now, let's look at fields. And it's pretty self-evident. You have things like due date, modified time, tags, display identifier, and so on. Now, the key thing here is that I would like you to get your attention to two aspects. One, that is a field type. Another, there's some rules. A field type defines not just how it looks on the UI, it actually defines its entire behavior. We're going to take a closer look at that soon. Then you also get rules. For example, you can add fields and you can say whether the field is editable or not editable at any point in time by users, whether the field is required, and whether the field is visible. Or you can look, if you look at it, these are rules you define at the business object level, and the user experience gets this and provides automatic behavior. So we're looking at two things here, a field type and a role. Now let's take a closer look. Let's start with something simple. I see a text area. Then let's see what a text area looks like. And what we see here is text area's properties. And you can see you can define max length and number of visible lines. Well, let's start from there. It's obvious that you define max length, and when you users enter data, it is restricted based on that. But you see that it says number of visible lines. It means when you put this field on our no-code UI, our no-code UI automatically restricts the height of that component based on this configuration. It's as simple as that, right? You don't go and configure, write a code, or you write some logic on the UI to restrict that. You actually define here. Now, let's go and look at a date time and see how date time looks. Okay, you can see that for the date time, you can define a format, short, medium, long. But beyond that, you could define what is your min and max selectable time. These can be defined in expressions. It is like you can say today is my default value, or today plus 10 days is my default value. And you can say like max selection is today plus 30 and min selection is today or today minus 30. So you could define all those things. Once you define it here, the no-code UI is going to automatically take this and enforce everywhere. Similarly, you have pick list. Now, pick list will give you similar definitions. Now, I want to focus on a little bit more advanced properties here. We did see this thing called a visibility, three kinds of rules, which is visibility, editable, and required. Now, if I look at this one, you also see something different, which is called rules. Now, when you define these visibility, editable, and required, they are field rules that works all the time. But you know what? You really don't want a field to be editable always. And sometimes you want to make it not editable, and sometimes you want to make it editable. And the same thing goes for required. So you can write rules. And these are, again, user-friendly expressions, very similar to what you would do in something like an Excel sheet. So you could write rules here, express rules here, and say if a field, another field is A, then make this required. And our no-code UI will react to that. So what we are seeing here is you add fields and you define field type. Based on the field type, you can define field properties, then you can define field rules. Then for the field rules, you can even write conditions to make it more adaptive. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of details about field types, but I want to stress the point that it is beyond text and date and numbers. So we have fields such as geo area, where you can actually choose a location, mark areas. We have file attachments, where you can attach files and we can control what kind of files being attached. We do have media, where you can attach media to it, images, videos. So we have a very sophisticated breadth or palette of rich fields that you can use to build your logic. Now, this is core. The message I want to re-emphasize here is that you're just not defining a table and columns. Rather, you are defining both the structure and the behavior of the business object right here in this definition. Now, let's switch to groups. If you see that, you can define a group like a company, and the groups can have fields. It has an address line 1, address line 2, business phone, city, state, and so on. Now, how this works, now you can define fields and the same kind of properties we defined. The group comes together on the UI. If you drag and drop a group, you get all those fields on the UI automatically. Then you have collections. So we talked about an example of order line item. Here is comments and followers or collections. So in the case of comments, you get to see how a comment text, comment created date, an attachment. And if you recall, I talked about attachment as a field type. You look at them. We also have lookups. Lookups actually can be used to connect between different business objects. So you can define any of these fields in this list. And this list will become an array in the programming world, but in our world, it becomes a no-code table that we will see soon. Okay, so what you saw now is fundamentally how you define a business object. Let me recap. A business object is not a table and columns. You define your business data structure using fields, groups, collections. And the fields can be defined with the simple field concepts of a field type. Each field type have different properties and they come with rules. And this actually makes sure when you put these fields on the UI, it provides a full no-code behavior. So that's what we're going to look at. So there's a step one, we defined our business object and see how we build our no-code UI. Okay, so I did talk about network pages. There are three patterns, three kind of pages that we have. We call them a search page, a new page, and a view edit page. A search page, straightforward. It's a table of experience, table experience, which gives you objects. A new page used to create something. A view edit page, you open an existing object and edit that. I want to re-emphasize the words I use. We use object type equivalent to table, object equivalent to a role. So these are the three pages. Before we actually get into the nuances, let's see how an end user can experience that. So there are two personas. We have solution developers who can define business object and design the pages. Once they design it, it's available for end users to experience. So let's start from the end. When an end user looks at this page, how it looks like. So this was the solution designer. Now I'm going to switch into something else. And you see here, I have a process network. So this is not a solution designer. This login in this role, I happen to have both so that I can easily show them to you. But this is your end user. And the end user can log in and they can choose a process network. And this process network is powered by our no-code solution and no-code experiences. So imagine this is a user from the company experiencing. They go to the task and click on that menu item. Now they see a table of objects. This is a search page. Now, if I click on one of this, it takes me to another page. We call it a view edit page. This page gives me a view of that object, and I can edit right here and make changes and say that's a view edit page. Now, let me go back to this. So we saw the search page. End users saw the search page. They can click on an object and then the view edit. They want to add a new task, they would click on the new that takes them to the new page. So that's the flow you get in your no-code experience. Let's take a closer look. So what we saw here, you click on the menu, you open your search page, and on the search page, you see objects. You click on the object, and that takes you to the view edit, where you can view the object and edit the object. Or you can click on the new, that will help you to save it. As simple as that. So there are three page types and the two important concepts. These page types can be created using drag and drop, and the navigation between them is seamless and automatic. That's the basic foundation of our no-code. So let me do a recap. We looked at the business object and use a business object to build a page. We use a business object to build a page. And that's by drag and drop. So what we'll do now is that we'll see how these individual pages look like at the beginning and how I can design them. So let's change our hats. We saw from an end user perspective, what you're going to do now is that how does this look like for a solution designer who created it? So I'm a solution designer now. I go in, I go back to my solution environment. Now, in my solution environment, I can go to this place and I can see that I have new pages. And these are kind of pages. And I have search pages and I have view edit pages. Now, for the sake of initial understanding, I'm going to show something to you. So let's look at this quiet experience, and you see we saw this task. Let's go here to this search pages. So what you're seeing is a search page. And let's find a page. Okay, so I'm going to open this page, and what you will see is something striking. Okay, let me do the switch. Here is the page end user is experiencing. This is the same page a solution designer can actually make changes to. You see, it's very identical. You see those titles, the tables, these buttons. I can see all of those here. But there's one thing very different. You see a green bar and an edit. This actually indicates you are now editing this page. So that's how our solution designers can design things. They can design this no code experience using drag and drop, and it is 100% what you see is what you get. Absolutely zero code involved. What you're going to do now is I will take you step by step with each pages and see what it means to design it. So in order to make sure that we spend most of our time in understanding the no-code design, so what I did is that I pre-created some pages for you. Okay, let's look at it. So here is a new page. Here is a search page. Here is a view edit page, which is empty. So how I do it, you can always go here. You can choose your new pages or a search pages, and then say, I want to create something new. And you just enter this, and that no code UI will be automatically created. So let's look at that. So I said I have 3 pages already created. You can see that by this green bar. I'm going to show you in action. I configured a menu here to show those vanilla pages. So I click on it. You see this one. I see like, hey, search task. There's nothing here. Why? Because we did not design that one. Let's do something simple. I'll add it. Then let me just go and change the properties of this. All right. Okay, going to, you see when I made some basic change on the text, this text here changed. I'm going to say apply and then save that. Let me save this page. Okay, so something got saved. Now what I'll do is that I'll go back and you see this thing? It just got changed. So here is a solution designer. who could make the changes live if needed, and end users see it immediately. That's where it starts, or no-code UI starts. Now let's get a little bit adventurous. How do I add fields to it? Columns, right? Okay, so this is where all columns go. Start configuring a table by adding columns. Then this one lets me drag and drop field. Oh, I have all my field. And if you recall, we had these business objects, and I'm going to go back to my business object again, and I am going to let me, oh, sorry, open that. You see like these fields, I can actually see them here. I can see all those fields here. So let's say I put in these two fields, and let me save it. And let's see what happens. This is the end user experience. I got them here. That's it. So just drag and drop the fields, and you actually get the experience finished. Now, it's not clickable. Why? Because we did not configure the navigation. So what I'm going to do now is going to edit this page again. Then I'm going to say how to, oh, I need a clickable field. So let me put a display identifier. Entity type, list ID. Also list ID. That's a good one for me. And I'm going to make list ID is navigatable. And I enable the navigation and I save them. Let's see what happens if I refresh. Okay, you see that we got the list ID here, and then you got it's clickable. That's it. Now you can do more. So for example, let's look at it. I'll go to filter. Well, it only has a multi-field search. Imagine I want to filter on more. I can go back to my design experience, click on the filter, and say, hey, I want to configure these filters. So, oh, let me configure my filters. And I can choose the area where I want to drop my filters, and I can add fields to them. Let's say I want to filter by due date. So let's search by date. Okay, let's do by creation due date. And let's also create by the and the list ID. That's it. You could fundamentally even design your filters for your page. Let's save this, then come back and refresh this. Voila, you got it. Now, let me take a pause there. So what happened is that we just created the business object, then we created the search page. And once we had the search page, we just did a drag and drop from the business object. And you could assign to the end user, then it starts working. It's as simple as that. We wrote no code. We wrote no code to save this data, the operations, and this UI to work. All of this was enabled by what we call Opus metadata layers. And this is possible across any of the Gen 2 compatible apps in Opus. And our metadata system takes care of running this. It generates generic code to get all this thing done. Now, let's progress. We saw the search page. Let's see what happens when let's clear the filters. Let's go here and clear the filters. And let's see what happens when you click on it. It's empty. Why? Because the view edit page had nothing on them. So why don't we work on the view edit page? Let's go here. Let's start with something simple so that we know this is exactly we are changing. So I'll go to my, okay. Now, what do I do? Now, you would see something interesting. First of all, they come with workflow. Every business object has their own workflow, and they are also defined in a no-code manner, but we'll take a look at it on a different day. Now, we would also define fields on this view edit page. You can organize by sections. That's what you see here. You see a section here, and you can give a title to my section. I'll just say basic information. Okay. Now I can say 1 or 2 columns, and you can drag and drop fields to this. Say we want to do the list, maybe the title. Okay, let's do tax. Okay, now let's do a little bit interesting thing. Let's go and change this into 2 columns. And maybe bring it here. Now, I want to recall something to you when we actually saw the business object. I did say that you could fundamentally define a number of visible lines in the business object. It's carried over across all the pages. Now, you see this here because of those properties. Now here, it also allows you to change those properties additionally if you want to. So I change those properties, you can override. It gave me 10 lines. Maybe I'll reduce it to 5 and save it here. Okay, so let's save this and see what happened to our view edit page. Let's go back, and I'm going to navigate to that page. That's it. We got them here. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat every field and things like that, but I want you to connect the concepts that we just saw, that you define this business object and the fields, and then every behavior that you define that comes here. You could have pick list, you could have file attachments, any kind of things, and they all provide an automatic behavior. You simply create your view edit page and organize your fields. Now, where it gets very interesting and very unique, and for not just for Opus and for our no code, is how we handle complex enterprise data structure. Let's look at it. So I did talk about groups, then I also talked about collections. So let's take a closer look at the collections. I said it could be a collection of line items on an order or a collection of comments on a task. Now, what happens? How do I place them? Great. Let's come here and I'll edit them. I'll add a new section. Let's say I want to put something into the section, drag and drop. Now you can see I have collections. I have a collection list and a collection table. How are they different? We'll see soon. Let's start with the collection list. I'm taking my comments and dragging and dropping, and what you see is something extremely different. Like as soon as you saw so far that I could drag and drop a date, it becomes a date field. I can drag and drop a text area, it becomes a text field, which is pretty straightforward and something that's available in other systems. But here I dragged and dropped a collection, which is an array which has fields inside them. As soon as I dragged and dropped, you got an entire experience for that. It gave you tree-like navigation to go through them, and then a panel to enter every piece of information behind that part. So let's just go with that for now before we go to the table. Maybe we should also add the table. Let's do another thing. Um, Save it. Okay, you can see this in preview mode. Let's also do the table before we go and preview this. I'll add one more section. Go to my section. Then I want to add another collection. I see a list of entities. I'm just seeing this. You see here, now I dragged and dropped a collection table. It's defined as a table rather than a list, and it has a table-like experience. Let's save this. Okay, let's go back to the end user experiencing this. That's it. You see, we got a comment and a table. Now, what's more interesting is let me go back to this and then say what I can do on my table. Okay, then I can even configure my columns. And let's try to do this. Now, if I select my table, you see something interesting. You remember I showed you a collection? Why don't we go back and look at it? It's easier to look at here. So we had this collection of table, sorry, a collection defined as table, and you see they have fields inside them. You can actually see those fields in this design. Every field defined under that collection appears here. I can drag and drop right into this. That's it. So the key part is that when I drag this collection, it automatically gave me the table. Then I choose that level and I can design what happens inside them. And that's it. You save it and you can go back to our page and let's look at it. We had one column. Why don't we go back? Then you can see three columns. That's it. Now, there's something interesting. Well, I can't edit any of this. That is because I have not defined how to actually edit. So for example, here, if I go to edit, I can click on these fields and enter them. But how do I do something here? Let's say I want to add a row here into my collection. It's empty. Why? Because we did not drag and drop fields into that. We're going to do that right now. So let's go back, edit my page. Let me go to my collection and look at my panel. And I have list entities, view, edit, add. So let's just design this one. Like we dropped columns onto the list entities, you could actually drop more columns here on my experience. I'm just going to do this. Let's say, I'm going to right, save it. come back here. If I try to edit and go to this, voila, you see those two fields. Now, I want to take a step back and do a deep reflection on what we just did. On the business object, you can define fields, drag and drop fields. They appear just like this, but you define complex structures like order line items, comments, and list of entities, supplier addresses, shipment addresses, because enterprise work is not about simple tables and simple columns. Transactions, information you would create for our systems like FOIA or issue management or DSE compliance, they are complex objects. So our system allows you to model these complex objects and then give a full 100% no-code behavior around these complex objects. So beyond dragging and dropping a due date, you can drag and drop a collection. You can design how your collection appears here by designing every field on that. Then you can individually design how to add what are the fields there, how do they appear, in which order, when you edit, what to happen, and so on. Now, that is the power of Opus no code experience, and which is 100% enterprise ready than any other no code systems that's available. And it is fully no code. Like we just took a very slow pace to do this. Ideally, even without a training, I would do it under an hour. And you could build complex systems now under a couple of hours or like maximum a day, and then get it live immediately. Now, what I did so far is fundamentally a deep dive on only one aspect of this. What are the network pages? How do you design them? How do you get to add and edit? But there are more advanced concepts. We had rules and how rules behave on the UI. We have buttons, and you see like there's a lot of buttons in export, import. They are not actually buttons. We have something called operations, which is 100% of code. There's a lot of power behind them. So we'll cover those on a different session, which would be a natural add-on from here. So I'm glad that we were able to show this to you today, and hope this helps you all to understand the power of Opus and how you can use for your own companies. Laura, I think that's a good wrap for today.
I do have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask and then see if anyone has any questions as well. I guess I just was curious to know how many pages can I create for an object? Is there a limit, or is it
It's a good
unlimited?
question. That's a fantastic question. First, I'm going to give you like the answer is no, no limits. Why? So the whole idea is that object is your data, but then you have different pages for different experiences. So
Mhm.
let's take like a process network. There are owners and partners, and you want different experience for partners. Another case is that you might have a partner who handles high volume transactions, a partner low volume transaction. They want different experience. You can build any number of pages for one business object and connect them to these menus, and then grant that menu access to the particular role and to the user. So that's the whole thing. You can create the page is just a template, a starter, and then you just create your requirements into every page for that business object.
Great, thank you. And it doesn't have any impact on anything if the number of pages you create.
No, it doesn't. In fact, the only thing I would highlight is that you can define all your behavior at the business object level. That's it,
Hmm.
right? Number of lines, or what are my pick list items, what are my rules? And it gets automatically available in all the pages. The only thing I would be careful about is that you can do page level overrides that I showed you about this particular number of lines at
Hmm.
every of the page. And if you choose to do that, that is at the page level. And that's the actual power. Any common behavior goes to the business object level. You may want some flexibility at the page level. And it
Great,
doesn't
fantastic.
tread
Yeah,
on each other.
great, thank you. And how do I make this available to the actual end user then?
It's a good question. So that goes back to our solution session.
Mm,
Fundamentally, all this goes under a solution. So if I go back to here, I have solutions and I can look at my solutions that I'm creating in my company. And this lives under the solutions umbrella. What you have to do is that you simply go to your administration. If you go to your administration and you choose your process network or your app, and within that process network, you get the ability to choose the solution. So you go here, design your solution, release your solution, and go to your administration and say, this is the solution available to my users, and they get to experience that.
okay, thank you. Um, and I guess just finally, can is it possible to test my changes before I release them to customers? So is there a state I can have it in before it's visible?
Absolutely. So Opus and TraceLink always have the concept of validation and production. Like, as you can see here, we have the V here, and that's where we are currently operating in. So you go to your validation and you make all your changes right in the validation. And once you whatever the changes you're doing in validation, you only test in validation. Your end users in production never get to see that. Once you release them, you test them here and release them. It goes
Mhm.
to this place called catalog. This is why we have catalog and a company solutions. Any solution you design for your company is available here. You simply go to your production, you download that solution in your production, which is like 2 clicks. And again, repeat this, go to administration, associate that solution. It is available to your users. This also gives you two ways. One is to design your solution in validation, give some login and validation for the users to test, and then go to production. And in case if you want to work on your next iteration, you will have versions. So production is running on version 1. In validation, you can actually do the version 2, test it, and then when they are happy, you can release. And all of that happens seamlessly right here in this whole interface. Thanks, Lara, for organizing this, and thanks everyone who could pick it up today. And we are happy and excited to hear back from you if you have questions. As Lara said, have a wonderful day.